Hi friends and happy days. Thanks for joining in on today's video. We will be talking about vitamin D and how critical it is in so many bodily functions. So let's go ahead and start talking about it. What is vitamin D actually besides a nutrient? So it's a nutrient that acts as a hormone in our body and it's responsible for many bodily functions. It's responsible from all things including hormone regulation, mood and mental well-being, immune function and inflammation, gene expression, circulation, bone health, metabolism, and heart health. So this little nutrient is responsible for a lot. We typically consume it from direct exposure to sunlight or consume it by eating foods where it's naturally occurring or through fortified foods. In reality, vitamin D deficiency is a global health problem, and in the US alone, it's been reported that 42% of average adults are deficient in vitamin D, and that number only increases with age group and any other underlying health conditions that could attribute to it. So let's explore why we might be deficient, what we can do to boost our levels, and understand why we need it and how to create balance in our bodies. So like I said, vitamin D is unique among vitamins because it really does function as a hormone. So when we have direct exposure, our skin synthesizes the sun, specifically the UVB rays, and converts that within the liver and the kidneys to its active form, which is called calcitriol. That is the active form that functions as a hormone in the body. The calcitriol binds to vitamin D receptors, which are found in nearly all cells in the body. So this binding allows the calcitriol to regulate the expressions of genes involved in bodily functions, such as calcium metabolism, all the way to immune function. In the body, the calcitriol hormone helps to regulate calcium and phosphate levels, which are responsible for maintaining healthy bones. It influences many processes, including cell growth, immune function, and inflammation. So this powerful little vitamin is actually pretty critical to our human experience. I'm sure after hearing all of the ways that vitamin D deficiency can affect your body and the different bodily functions, you are probably wondering how you can tell if you're deficient. Well, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you what some big indicators of vitamin D deficiency look like for most people. So for most people, big indicators of deficiency are related to bone loss. So there are symptoms related to bone pain, bone fractures, muscle weakness, muscle pain. There's also a reduced immune response, which is common. So there's likely more risk for infection and also flare-ups in immune system related conditions like psoriasis. But deficiency really looks different for everyone. Your mental health might also suffer since vitamin D is important in the synthesis of serotonin. Serotonin is known to affect your mood, it's known as the happy chemical, and it helps with focus and attention. During the winter months or in places where there is less sunlight, it's actually pretty common for people to experience SAD or seasonal affective disorder. On days of shorter daylight, there is a set-off of chemical changes in the brain leading to symptoms of depression. It's typically only related to the seasons and lack of exposure to sunlight. So it's something that we can overcome with more gradual exposure and connecting with ourselves in order to process heavier emotions as they come. So if you're not necessarily sure where your vitamin D levels are at and you're not necessarily experiencing those dramatic symptoms, but still don't feel yourself, I would really recommend going to your doctor and asking for a lab test. That's the only way to gather where your baseline levels are and have a reference point for if you need more intake or if you are already at base capacity. Ideally though, the average person will have optimal levels between 20 to 50 nanograms per milliliter, and you can get that much by spending 5 to 10 minutes in direct sunlight 3 times a week, or a little bit longer on days where it's a bit shaded. But it really does depend on the person. There are many factors that could affect your rate of absorption. So for example, older people might need a higher dose because as you age, the skin does not convert vitamin D at the same rate that it would for a younger person. Also, people with darker complexions might need a higher dose because the melanin in their skin competes with the chemical substance that converts the UVB rays into vitamin D, and as a result, there's more need for sun exposure than there would be for somebody who has more fair skin. Also, people who live in northern climates are most likely already deficient in vitamin D. Overweight people might also need higher doses. When we're absorbing vitamin D, our skin synthesizes what it needs and then breaks down the rest. There is really not a high risk for overconsumption, but it is possible to get toxicity from vitamin D, and that can lead to increased calcium absorption. It should also be noted that there were studies found that vitamin D actually protects the skin against skin cancers and helps reduce the risk of melanomas, which is a little ironic, right? Because we are naturally trying to protect our skin from overexposure, and in doing so, also preventing ourselves from consuming something that our body needs for its own healing. So I found that really interesting. But if you think about it, back in our primal days, we were out in the sun, we were hunting and gathering naked, we ate lots of fish, we ate lots of mushrooms, and nowadays we just aren't getting the same amount of any of that. We aren't getting the same nutrients, we're wearing clothes, and we are spending most of our days working inside of a building more than likely. So the levels at which we are consuming it are drastically different. Nutritionally speaking, it's difficult to supplement vitamin D only through food sources because vitamin D is only naturally occurring in a handful of foods. So foods like mushroom are a great example. They absorb UV light and they can provide vitamin D at different levels depending on how much of this light they've been exposed to. Also, fish like salmon is good if you aren't vegan, and eating these on a weekly basis will help with vitamin D intake, but hard to rely on solely nutritionally. Vitamin D is also found in fortified foods, so a lot of milk products add vitamin D during production, but still the absorption efficiency of these foods, considering the bioavailability, is significantly lower relatively than dietary vitamin D or sunlight conversion vitamin D. And when considering supplemental vitamin D, the two most common forms are D2 and D3. And from my understanding, D3 is the most natural and the one I would most likely go with. D3 is the animal-based form and is bioidentical to what we form in our own skin. So it's easier for our liver to use this more efficiently. But vitamin D2 is the plant-based form, and it's a great alternative for people who are strictly vegan or have something against animal-based forms. But whichever way you choose to go about consuming it, there are going to be key benefits in doing so. This mighty little vitamin packs a punch in so many functions. In bone health, it really helps us absorb calcium, which is crucial for strong bones and strong teeth, especially as we age. It also supports immune function and boosts the immune system to help fight off infection and illness. It supports muscle function, it supports heart health, it supports in mental health, it supports in cancer prevention because it might support in inhibiting the growth of certain cancer cells. So I bet now it's pretty easy to see why this vitamin is vital to our overall health and well-being. And with the rates of deficiency being so high, I think it's pretty critical for us to take a step in the right direction of spreading awareness and doing our best to regulate our bodies. All right, and that is it for today. So thank you guys for joining and watching. I really do hope you found this helpful. If you did, please leave a thumbs up. Also, leave any comments related to your experience with vitamin D intake. I'd be really curious to hear any stories that you've got about absorption, or maybe if you've gotten your levels checked, that would also be cool to hear. And yeah, so thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.